Right. Thank you so much, Natella. And I have to say, it is a privilege, and I'm so delighted to be able to share this space with you and to interact and to speak on what clearly is a very important topic. Now, as one of the ground rules for this meeting, I was actually told that I shouldn't patronize the audience. So I'm going to try to to refrain from that. But actually, I look, seriously over the room. I look through, to the backside there, and everyone. I have to say that this has to be the most beautiful audience that I've ever seen. Absolutely, and that's true. So in taking up this assignment, I had to go between, either being lighthearted and making it fun, or being a bit more serious. It wasn't an easy choice for me, but, everything is fun until it gets, a bit serious. And I think this is one of those topics that, even though it is fun, it can actually get, quite serious. And I'm going to show you just a few data flashpoints that show quite a sobering concern about the issue of consent and access to sexual and reproductive health services, but also the shared responsibilities that we have, on this. Every day, and this was spoken about earlier today, 20,000 girls under the age of 18, they give birth. Now that is just shocking. Going beyond that, we have a third of young women in developing countries marrying before the age of 18. And in terms of deaths and mortality, we actually have complications from pregnancy being the second most common cause of death in young women. I think this sort of data flashpoints show how important sexual and reproductive health services are, and the need for to be able to have adolescents independently consent for these services. Now, it boils down to if there are benefits to consenting or not. If there are no benefits, I think we can say, okay, well and good. But there are actually documented, scientifically relevant, and very clear evidence on the benefits of sexual and reproductive health for adolescents. One of the things we hear about is risk compensation. If young people and adolescents have free access to sexual and reproductive health, it might be that they probably have more sex. It might be that they probably have more partners. But that is actually the contrary of what the evidence shows. Actually, we have seen, and this is clear from multiple evidence and research, that following access to sexual and reproductive health, there is actually evidence that adolescents have later sexual debut, so they start having sex even later. There is decreased number of partners and reduced sexual risk taken. They have more accurate information, of course, and better health and well-being, and certainly challenging gender norms, which we know is such a big problem. These services help to equate and to challenge those toxic gender norms. Now, can they consent? Do they have the capacity to consent? I think we look at this in a bit of the wrong light. It's not really about whether they can consent. It's more about whether it is a right or not. And there are multiple treaties around the world that show that adolescents actually have the right to life, they have the right to this information, they have the right to give independent consent for reproductive health services if their capacities for understanding have sufficiently evolved. So I would crave your indulgence, ladies and gentlemen, to move this away from an issue of capacity to that of rights. And when you have human rights, this being one of them, we have absolutely no choice but to put the gates open and allow adolescents to independently consent. Now, I work for WHO, and proudly so, and we have numerous evidence-based recommendations that support the proposition that I know you all, actually support. Countries are actually encouraged to examine their consent policies and consider revising them to reduce these age-related barriers so that adolescents can benefit from these services. Now, it's all about fear or fact. So as you vote, I urge you to look whether you're actually voting out of fear or actually following what the fact is. The fact, one, would be that this would lead to unbridled sex and promiscuity. The fact, of course, is that adolescents already have sex, indeed, loads of it. There is data to prove that, and we need to be able to move away from this fear of sex and promiscuity to actually see that providing these services actually lead to better outcome. Abstinence, of course, is another fear. We say, okay, it's much better. Let's move away from leaving the gates open to abstinence. We know, certainly, that abstinence-only programs do not work. Actually, the intentions vis-a-vis the practicality of abstinence is what we know matters. Third, this would lead to confidential care with no parental control or supervision. I think we cannot dismiss that fear, and we heard that come up today in the meeting, earlier in the opening. The fear has to be acknowledged, but actually, it's a choice between having this confidential care or having what I would call secretive care, which we know comes with shame and stigma and all of the humiliation that we know is not right. Adolescents are young children and they lack experience. Of course, they are not, and they have the capacity and the ability to consent. So I'm going to round up now by saying, my colleague Elena is someone I know really well. I am sure that she's not going to come here and do something opposite, because I know what she believes in. She believes that adolescents have the right, to independently consent, and it's not really about winning this debate. It is about winning together and actually being on the right side of history. Thank you.